Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Olympus Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help you take your finances to great heights. I'm your host, John Sidery, and I'm very thankful to have a special guest that traveled in town to share a lot of great insight that will matter to everybody, regardless if it matters to you now or it'll matter to you later, and that's about Medicare. So with us is Allen Collicott. He's been in the insurance business for over 50 years, and for the last 25 years has had his own insurance agency, totally independent, and he has ultimately serviced people, whether it be from home and auto or life insurance or disability, but he really has a niche specialty with clientele with Medicare planning and Medicare insurance. And in today's age where Medicare is so important, knowing what's covered, what's not covered, where your gaps are at, he's going to shed some insight on all of his wisdom and how he helps out his clients. So, Allen, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
Well, how about you just kind of dive in and give our audience a little bit about who you are?
My name, like John said, is Allen Collicott, and I started very young in the insurance business to be in it as long as John just had mentioned that I have been in it, and I've enjoyed it. It's created a spot in our community that we can service our clients right there locally, and we are a fixture in our town, which happens to be Lafayette, Indiana, and we're proud to be involved in the community in many ways. But we really do enjoy servicing our customers in a multiplicity of ways, and we're a true, I would almost call us like a mom and pop type agency that they can feel comfortable coming in to our office. We used to go out on making calls. That doesn't seem to be that way as much, but it's very accessible in the community, and we've been involved in the schools and promotion of our business and so forth. But that's kind of where we're at.
Truly kind of emphasize what we try to stand for at Olympus, which is family level service, right?
Yes. Yes.
But as far as maybe Medicare is concerned, Allen, maybe tell us at a super high level. We'll drill down more about some of the questions that really our listeners want answered. But just kind of in plain English, what is Medicare? Maybe can you cover what the different parts mean, and when can somebody even enroll in Medicare?
Well, Medicare, of course, is something that was set up many years ago by our government to help the seniors have some plan for medical insurance in their senior years. Mm-hmm. So when you cross over from 64 to 65, you literally qualify for Medicare if you have been in the United States legally and have paid into Medicare, which if you notice your pay stubs, there's always a little charge there for Medicare benefits. And also for people that are disabled. If you got disabled and you qualified for disability under Social Security disability, 24 months after being disabled, you again automatically qualify at any age for Medicare.
Wow.
So you get Medicare. And also if you're end-stage renal disease where you're kidney dialysis, you also qualify for Medicare. There is no underwriting questions. They accept you and you are on, and you get your Medicare automatic at that point for Parts A, which is hospitalization, and you have to actually apply usually for Part B. Part B is for services such as doctors, nurses, and the surgeries, anything that to do with.
So Part A is being admitted to a hospital, where Part B is going to see your doctor.
Not even necessarily admitted. If you had an outpatient service, that facility is Part A.
Okay.
And when you were working, the money that was taken out pays all of Part A. So when you reach that qualifying event, you then do not have to pay for Part A. That is automatic. And then you apply. If you're on Social Security, a lot of times they will go ahead and put you in Part A and B because you're already on Social Security. They figure you're qualified. And I have seen people just get the Part B sent to them. But more often I say apply. You don't want to miss out on getting your Part B. You do have to pay for that. And right now I think that's $185 per month that you would pay.
But it depends on how much you make, right? And how much income
exactly.
you show. Yeah.
The more you make, you could check with John on that, but you can Google it and look it up. It changes a little bit every year, and it changes between whether you're an individual or whether you're a family. And as a family or a couple, it's about $185,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's moved up as time goes by, and around 90-some thousand if you're an individual. So as you go up the scale, they can charge you more for that benefit out of your pay. If you pay for it, they bill you quarterly. That's a pretty good premium quarterly that you're right. But now you have Medicare, and you might want to ask a question, or I can just expand on that. Medicare, I even tell seniors that come in, and I say, Medicare's a great deal. It's just a great deal. Seniors are notorious for fussing and griping. I'm a senior, we just, didn't do that, but $185 is a pretty cheap price for medical insurance. I qualified before my wife. I'm a little older than her, but the last premium she had, I'm trying to think, was around $800 a month. And she got a $7,000 deductible plan for that. And when she got into Medicare, that wiped that off the board, and she's $185 is what she pays.
Well, it's a big difference in today's environment where, regardless if you're self-employed, like you alluded to, getting private insurance, or you work for a company that provides it as part of your benefits, you'll notice every single year, regardless where you work for, most every place, that cost of insurance continually goes up in the premiums, right? Whereas Medicare, it's not going to be as severe every single year, whether it's the 185 or the 90. But talking about the different types of coverage, can you let us know maybe where the gaps are for Medicare? Because people always talk about, we're going to get into, some of the biggest questions that we have, but just at a high level, what are some of the gaps that Medicare does not provide automatically?
Back to your premium, I think when she started, or when I started on Medicare, it was $165, maybe even $155 or something like that. Now it's $185. And again, seniors are complaining, it went up $20, $30, but that's not a big amount of increase compared to what private insurance would be. Medicare has a couple deductibles. Your doctor's is not that much. It's literally $200. It's $257 for the whole year. It adds up until you're out $257 for the whole year. But Part A, which is a hospitalization, it's $1,676 this year, deductible. Yeah, still not that bad, but then it's 20% ongoing, unlimited. Now you pay that under the Medicare cost basis, which is considerably less than the big bill that you see at a hospital. Yep. They reduce it, and it gets to a much smaller number. But 20% of a large number is still a large number for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you've got the deductibles, and then you got that co-insurance, and that's at 20%. So we suggest that you cover that in some way. And there's a couple different ways to cover that.
Yeah, and we'll explore those, but that's a really good point you made right there, because most people who are coming off of insurance, whether it be they bought their own private insurance or they were part of a group plan through work, they're used to what's called that out-of-pocket maximum, where you just mentioned for Part A, that's the 20% unlimited. So you have, if you have a big medical need, that could be, like you said, a very large bill. But let's go ahead and just hit the question that everybody had reached out to for us to clarify, and really for you to give your insight. What's the difference between, maybe call it, like you just mentioned, Medicare, but everybody talks about, do I need supplemental or do I need an Advantage plan? And can you just give us, before we dive really deep into those, just what is a supplemental policy and what is an Advantage plan?
I will. But one thing I want to say that a lot of times will mention to a senior, if you stopped right there at Medicare, and I've had family members that didn't believe in buying hardly any insurance, and unless you go to the hospital over and over again and run up a large bills, and I say you have better health insurance than a lot of young people that can't afford good health insurance, because you're going to have the majority of your bills paid for at a reduced cost, and then they're going to help you with that even. But you asked the question, what are the differences, but options that you can fill that gap,
exactly,
and not leave yourself or your loved ones with a larger bill that's hard to manage. There's basically two ways. There's Plan A, which is, I wouldn't even call it Plan A, just one direction, and that was the old school way, and the way that a lot of people still feel comfortable with, and some financial planners strongly encourage you to go that way. I was even more leaning towards the Medicare supplement. You simply buy a plan that covers, they won't even cover that $257, but they'll cover that $1,600 and something every time you go in the hospital. They'll cover it all. They'll just cover it all. So other than $257.
So no deductible if you go into the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a Medicare policy already, which you need, everybody does after they're fit that plan, you buy the supplement, and people love it because they say, I don't have any bills. I just don't have any bills. They pay all of it. And you can go to any hospital, any doctor that accepts Medicare, which is the majority.
So a lot of flexibility.
A lot of flexibility. Anywhere in the United States, and anywhere if you travel, if let's say you're a snowbird and you're in one state and you go to Florida for the winter, you don't have to worry about being in any networks or anything like that. So people do feel pretty comfortable with those plans, justifiably so. Then you need a drug plan. If you don't get the drug plan, you're going to go into it maybe later, but there is a penalty for not getting a drug plan. It's 1% per month for every month you go without buying a drug plan.
Oh, wow.
So even if you don't have any drugs, or the drugs are so cheap, I can afford that, and you choose not to get a drug plan and you wait 1 year, you've just got 12% increase for life. And you do that 2 years, you got 24. You do that 4 years, you're going to have 100%.
Very penalizing.
You're penalized. But the average drug plan today is maybe only $40, $35, $40. I've seen them as low as very few dollars, in the teens, up to $130. So depending on how rich the drug plan is, depends on the price is. So you should get a drug plan, in my opinion. Just be safe. If nothing else, get the watered down worst plan, at least get a drug plan and get that started. Also, you didn't go into it, but if you don't buy Part B and you delay for some reason, you're penalized 10% for every year, and that's lifetime continuous too. So just make sure that you get on board, and you can Google it. It's not that hard. Apply for Medicare, and do not go to anything that does not say .gov. Yeah. There's companies that will try to grab you and sell you something or move you in or even charge you a fee to get what's free. If you go to .gov, start pointing and clicking until you get there. If you can't do it, have somebody in your family that can help you go through and navigate that, and make sure you get on board.
So then, knowing what the supplemental policy is, now what people talk about a Medicare Advantage plan? What is that?
Well, let's go back to the supplement. There is a price for the supplement, and and they have all the way from different plans, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the plans that really were sold years ago was F. Everybody thinks they wanted F because it even paid that deductible of $257. What you find out is they charge $500, $600 to pay the $257. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. You should never have bought F, and you shouldn't get F again. And I still have customers, I want plan F, what's with my... Don't go with that. Just get the G or the N, and I know the difference between the plans. Go to somebody that'll kind of show you a couple differences. But the G is the most popular right now, pays everything except that $257. And N, you got to pay $25 extra when you go to the doctor, and they charge you again about $40 a month extra for getting the 25, and you'd have to go to the doctor every single month, twice a month, to be ahead. And people will still think that I want the G because I don't want to. They get feared they're going to have to pay something extra.
Well, sure. Fear
is a big thing, especially as you get older.
And the unknown.
And once you get locked in, I'll mention this too, underwriting. There is no underwriting when you first start in at 65. You can be physically complicated with all kinds of problems, and they don't even ask. You get a free in as far as underwriting. No pre-existing conditions. You're covered, you're covered, you're covered. If you want to switch plans later on and you drop out and you try to go back in, you are underwritten.
When you mean switch plans, is that between supplemental and advantage or just in between different plans?
Even supplement to another supplement.
Okay.
Let's say their prices start gravitating higher and higher and higher. Some companies actually played a game there. They would give new customers a cheaper price and jack up the old ones because they because healthy ones will shop around, and the ones that are not healthy can't shop around. So they keep getting a more adverse risk selection. So the price does gravitate up. I've seen some ugly premiums as you age, and most companies are very competitive to get you at first. They want you at first. And for an N or a G, depending on where you live, it could be anywhere from 100 to 135 or 40. Then you get a drug plan, and let's just use the average, 35 or 40. So you know you've got your 257. I think that's what it is. Yeah, 257. And then you get your supplement, and then you get your drug plan, and now you've got a nice fit. You're good. But as we age, they do rate you for age, and the price goes up and up and up. So that's how it works.
So be mindful that it sounds like under a supplemental plan, that cost will creep up over time.
Absolutely will.
Yeah.
Absolutely will. Some more than others, and but you can count that it will go up. I've seen people in their 80s paying $450 a month, $500 a month, up in the late 80s. It gets kind of ugly, and then they pay the drug plan, and they're paying quite a bit for it. So they could be out, thousands of dollars as they age up into it. Yes.
So if they want to switch to an Advantage plan, is that possible, or is there a time frame to do that?
Well, we probably ought to discuss what an Advantage plan is. You go one side, Medicare supplement, Medicare. By the way, I just think this is important. Medicare supplement policies have no claims department. The Medicare is the claims department, and Medicare pays and said, you're next on deck. So they can't say, well, we'll deny this, or we don't think that's right, we want to take another look. They just have to pay it. To be in the program, they have to fit within the guidelines of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. So if the Medicare pays it, they just send them the notice, this is what we paid.
So if you're with a carrier who has a supplemental plan, they've met those qualifications, and if you have something that you need and it's a part of that because it's been approved, it's not a question of is this approved, it's a matter of when they're going to pay it. It's
Medicare makes the decision, and then they pay. So there's very little arguing about it, and I will say that Medicare has been known to be a little softer touch, and people like that. Nursing homes love it, and some skirting edges of medical practices can bang Medicare easier. So a lot of people really like that Medicare because have you ever heard of Medicare getting taken advantage of? So it happens. It does actually happen to I don't know what the number is, probably billions, that they are tapped for questionable claims or things that have been purchased that didn't necessarily need to be. But Medicare is a softer touch, and some people like that. You do have to pay for that.
Yeah.
And there is a cost for, I don't like to use the word ineptness, but there's a cost for things being paid that shouldn't be paid, and we're all paying for it. And it comes through your Medicare premiums, Medicare supplement premiums. So, yes. Now, you want me to talk about the other side, the Medicare Advantage. What the government has allowed to do is say, tell you what, we've taken a lot of your insurance away from you. They used to say we had individual insurance and group insurance and all kinds of individual insurance, and you bought it and you qualified and you wrote it. Today, there's almost no individual health insurance. It's called the Affordable Care Act or group insurance. There just really isn't to speak of at all, individual health insurance. But the insurance companies know how to pay claims, how to handle customers, how to work with hospitals, how to work with doctors to negotiate pricing and so forth, and they're good at it. They know what they're doing. So the government says, tell you what, I'm trying to simplify this a little bit, but in general, I'm speaking like I would understand it. we'll give you the money. We'll just let you have all the money and you manage the plan.
To the insurance companies.
Yes, they say that to the insurance companies. But you have to pay every single thing that Medicare says that we allow to be paid. You can't say no, you can't do this, you have to do that. For wellness, you got to cover that. Vaccines, if who knows what vaccines are and aren't covered now, but if it's covered by Medicare, anything that is allowed and covered by Medicare, you got to pay it, but in a little bit different way. So they get all the money. 20 years ago, when Advantage plans started coming out, a lot of people were scared. They was like snakes. They want to get bit. Something's not right. And I could just tell you that because Medicare Advantage plans used to be $100, pretty close to Medicare Supplement when you started, but they kept getting more and more and more efficient to where the price kept coming down to the point they literally were zero. Then they said, we have to give the benefits back to the seniors, or the government's not going to give us all this money. So let's just enrich the benefits. So that's where you see all these ads that says, do you want groceries? Do you want over-the-counter? Do you want hearing, vision, dental? And they started giving more away to finally they started saying, here's a credit card. If you need something for dental, vision, hearing, or over-the-counter, here's $1,000, and now it's $500. But it's begun to be tighter and tighter. They have budgets to manage and so much to give to the customer or the patients, the seniors, and they've tightened some of those down, but they do give richer benefits because it's competitive. They want your business, and they've been able to make money in it. They have been able to manage it, so they've operated, and now we can talk about the pluses and the minuses of that situation.
I was going to say, let's clarify that for our listeners. So, we talk about supplemental plans. They might be $100, or as you age, it might get old. It might get more expensive. You have to buy a separate drug policy, so there's more cost. But I believe, like you mentioned a few moments ago, supplemental plans. You can be in Indiana, Arkansas, Florida, California, go anywhere. There's no network. Just go get your care. Advantage plans, it sounds like there is a trade-off there for effectively no cost out of pocket. Is that correct?
And that's what seniors actually will ask me. They'll say, how do you do that for zero premium? And it's hard to get across to them. They're not doing it for zero premium. Mm-hmm. They don't tell me what the cost is per senior. And I don't know if they've gravitated up for these Medicare Advantage companies, but when my wife was paying at the end, I think $1,100, I say, I think they're probably giving them at least $1,000 somewhere. It could be, I don't know what the number is, but they're getting a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then they get a payout on Medicare cost, which is, you've seen those, if you've ever seen those bills, a $50,000 bill can turn into $8. I mean, it's crazy. Medicare pays lower than definitely private pay.
Yeah.
that number goes way down. So they get it at Medicare cost, and they get the money from the government. So it works for them, and it works for the insurance company. What you're asking, does it really work for the patient, the customer, the client? Does it really work? Is that what you're asking?
Well, does it work, and what's the trade-off versus a supplement?
The trade-off is that you have a managed health care. And I live up around Purdue. I live in Lafayette, West Lafayette. I actually live in West Lafayette. And if you work at Purdue, you can pick a couple different plans. And right there, you actually are picking, do I want an HMO or a PPO? And what is an HMO? That's where you stay in network a little bit more, but you might get a little cheaper price or a little extra benefit if you go the HMO. But people are afraid. What if I want to run to Florida and I get in trouble or this or that? So they pick the plan that's best for them. So it's not much different than if you work for somebody. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's probably as simple as I could say it. The companies have different plans.
Sure.
So the government has allowed these other plans to be out there. A trade-off is you get definitely a cheaper initial cost, and you get some extra benefits. I threw some of those out there. Dental, vision, hearing, maybe even some over-the-counter things. But it's managed. Now, what's managed means, in its worst sense, you need an MRI, and they want to get it approved before they spend that large amount for the MRI, and they go, I think we better do some rehabilitation. Rehabilitation might be $35, $40, $50, $70 a time, but it wouldn't be $3,000 for an MRI. So they might say, we think we better check that a little bit before we go any further.
So it may not be instant approved like under the supplemental plan.
Right.
Okay.
Best I can say it is Medicare will roll over easier.
Yeah.
And that's why some of the medical industry, they even somehow say, don't get that Medicare Advantage. I'll give you one example. When I was doing this, and I've sold Medicare products for well over 20 some years, but about 20 years ago is when the Medicare Advantage started coming in, and we were taking an ethics class, which you and your industry were supposed to be
heavily regulated.
Yeah, so it's important. We have to pass this. We have to show we're ethical, and I was in an ethics class, and we had an agent that stood up and said, if anybody sold an Advantage plan, they ought to have their license revoked. I didn't say it, but what I felt was, dummy, you ought to sit down and shut up. You don't even know what you're talking about. So it's not like that. It's not snakes getting ready to bite you. You have to understand it's a little different. It's a different plan.
It's a different product.
Has anybody ever claimed about a medical plan that did or didn't pay something that you were an employee and you had a group health?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it happens. People will complain. And health industry, it's one of the biggest complaining group there are. Oh, yeah. Claims. So could I say there's more? Maybe. But that's a trade-off. By the way, they call that Part C. You have A, B, which you buy through your Medicare, and then you get the supplement. That's not got a name, not got a letter. It's a Medicare or Medigap. It's the same word. And then there's a drug. Part C is a whole different thing. They get the money, but most Advantage plans actually give the drug plan included in the Medicare Advantage plan. That's the ones that they like to sell, that they get it in the same plan. So you got everything, Part C. You got your hospitalization, you got your doctors, you got your drug plan, all in the same plan. And many times what I've seen is the drug plan is actually slightly better enriched. You'd have to pay more if you bought the same drug plan standalone because the deductibles can be lower. Why? They're wanting to entice you into their drug plan or into their Medicare Advantage plan and give you maybe a little better drug plan. Now, you asked what other trade-offs. You get the price for free. We even have plans that they pay you to take it. $75, $100, $125. How would they do that? They just give back some of your Part B premium, and if you're on Social Security, your Social Security actually goes up for that amount that they give back. And they might take away the drug plan and say, I don't need a drug plan, or I don't want this, or I don't need that. So there's ways to even reduce that Part B through a Medicare Advantage plan. But when you go in, you got to pay a copay. And you do have the $257 for the doctor and $1675 or whatever it is for the hospital, $1676 for the hospital, but just take that off the table. I said it has to pay the same benefits, but in a different way. So when you go see your primary care doctor, it can be anywhere from $0 to, I've seen about the highest I've ever seen is $20, 10, 15, 20, 25. That's it. And then you go see a specialist, it might be 35, 45, 55. These are all very manageable. Mm-hmm. So you can see your doctor in network if it's an HMO. If it's a PPO, it's a preferred provider. So you'll get the cheaper price if you go to the HMO side or the preferred provider, and you'll have to pay a little more if you go outside the network. So you can still go outside network. It's not a snake biting you. You can go out of network, but they might not be quite as rich. But if you're nervous about it, you can buy a PPO that will let you go outside the network. But when you go get a surgery, the surgery could be, oh my God, $300. If you stay in a hospital, they might charge you $400 for that one day, and they'll charge it to you for 5 days, 6 days, you notice it still only gets up around 2,000, 2,500. So it stops. It stops. You could stay 3 months and you quit paying. So there is amounts that you have to be out of pocket. So when seniors talk, and I have had this, I've had seniors literally paying $4,000, and between a husband and wife, I've had people pay $6,000 to $8,000 easy, high numbers, and I can't help but it almost makes me sad and chuckle. They go, "But I don't have to pay anything." I mean, I'm a senior myself, but I mean, seniors don't like to pay out of pocket, and somehow they get lulled into this $300-400 that they're paying $500-600 as you get older or more, and they still will say, "But I don't have to pay anything." Well, if you have the Advantage plan and you pay 35 or 10 or 0, and then you pay $2,000 if you stayed in the hospital, and then you came back home and got better and went back in and paid another $2,000, you go, "Oh my God." But most of the Advantage plans, if you take an HMO, just an example, their maximum out of pocket for all the copays, all the hospitalizations, everything, not drugs, hospitalization, is $3,500, $4,500 sometimes, $5,000. That's about it. And if you go out of network, listen to this, could go as high as $8,000, $9,000. That's about the highest I see. And I don't see that happen very often because most of them stay in the network and they just don't get there. So on average, I'm just saying average, and averages don't always work, as we know, but they've done it over and over and over. And on average, the Medicare Advantage beats the cost out of pocket year by year over the Medicare supplement and the drug plan separate. So they beat it. But on a negative scale, they could be out of pocket $8,000. And that's why I should have my license revoked, because I could let somebody get to $8,000.
Well, but I guess kind of going back to supplement versus Advantage, right? It also is going to depend upon that person's lifestyle, right? And ultimately what they're comfortable with, and maybe some other factors for their health. So let's maybe talk about kind of lifestyle as it folds into Advantage versus supplement. Have you noticed, are there any types of people that tend to be a better fit for Medicare supplement versus maybe a Medicare Advantage plan?
What the industry and what it would just be generally said, if you're in poor health, it would be probably advised to take the supplement, because you're really going to use the benefit. And you can go to any hospital. I will say cancer. Cancer can, because you got Part B, which doesn't pay through the drug plan, it's paid through actual Medicare. And those treatments, what do they call that? Radiation, or chemotherapy. Yeah. Those ongoing, you will max out, you could max out your Medicare Advantage plan. And if you have it in your family or you're worried about it, obviously if you're just well off enough that you don't really worry about that cost, which some people that is minimal, to pay $3, $4, $5. It's still cheaper than my wife was paying before she hit 65. So that's a very manageable budgeting. In the Advantage plans, you can get dental, vision, and hearing. And a lot of people say, we're cheapskates. I am. I get dental. I just had a crown put in. That's $1,100. They're going to pay for that. So I get hearing aids. I pay them for $2,000. She still tried to sell me $6,000 ones. I said, I think the ones that my plan pays is just fine. Yeah. And I get free glasses. So I'm pretty healthy. Yeah. And I don't think I'm taking a risk, an undue risk. And I'm 76. So I've had it a decade. And I've went back and forth. I had an Advantage plan. I'll touch on one thing. If you go from a supplement and you buy an Advantage, you have 1 year to see how you like it. If you get nervous or scared, you have 1 free year to go back with no underwriting. If you go past that year, you have to be underwritten again. So if you've got a disease or something, you won't be able to bail back out. And that, again, scares people. Once you tell somebody you can't have something, all of a sudden you want it.
That's right.
So if you're nervous about that, or just the money isn't that much difference, I can afford it, I can say nothing against having the original Medicare and a decent Medicare supplement, and you're good. You're good to go, and you can buy your own glasses, you can buy your own dental and vision. That's fine. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's actually rewind for a second on one point you made. Can people, you mentioned if they start off with a supplement and go to an Advantage, they've got kind of that 1 year free look. So long as they don't go past that year, they can automatically go back to a supplement without underwriting. What about people who choose an Advantage? Can they leave the Advantage plan and go into a supplement? Does the same rule apply to them, or is it different?
That's a good question. I thought, I should know this, but I thought they had a year. I read today, they said you have 3 months. That's a pretty tight window.
To try out the supplement and go back to the Advantage?
To start the Advantage and go to the Medicare.
Okay.
Go to the Medicare supplement without underwriting. You can always underwrite and go in. Mm-hmm. I'll give you one example, though. He happened to be my accountant, and I explained that, and that you had the 1 year after, because he went from a supplement where he's paying a lot, and he was getting older, and he went to the Advantage because he's an accountant. He wanted to save money too.
Yeah.
So he got that, he just wiped the premium off the books. And he called me, he said, Allen, I want to go back. I said, what's the matter? He says, I got prostate cancer. I said, oh, I'm sorry, first of all. But he says, I just nervous. Now I got that cancer that, you said if you get cancer. I already knew it was too late. I hated to tell him. I said, I'm sorry that you got cancer, but I will say as a senior, prostate cancer isn't that unusual, and it's manageable, and I trust that you get. But here's the bottom line. I said, you got health insurance. You got health insurance. It didn't go away, and they can't cancel you. Just keep turning in your claims. And he lived another, I don't know if he lived another decade, but he didn't die of prostate cancer or any kind of cancer. He could die of something else. Mm-hmm. And his bills were all paid, and it was managed, and there was no problem. So we do get nervous. I had a scare. I'll just even use myself. I was on a Medicare Advantage trying to save money and getting the extra benefits, but it was real early on, and I found out something. You know what blood platelets are? Who even knows what they are, but if you got something going on in your system, your blood platelet count drops, and it kept dropping, and I started Googling, and leukemia, cancer, that's a scary thing, and I had to go get my bone marrow pulled out to see how far this had maybe advanced or what it was. And as I walk in, it says Cancer Center. Now that what got real. And I said, I'm not laying on my stomach having somebody tapping in my spinal cord for nothing.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, I have always had low blood plates. They never checked it, but it had nothing to do with cancer or anything. So it wasn't that far down anyway. But I went back to the supplement. I said, give me that supplement. Because
you might have been worried about the unlimited coverage, right?
Yes, yeah. And I could go, if I want to go to Texas and get cancer treatment, I could go. Yeah. And it's a little easier tap. So you got that. I get it. But as time went on, just like I told my accountant, I just got nervous Nelly. I just got all, but I now, since then, I've had the Advantage plan. And my wife has got the Advantage plan. And I'm not that concerned about it.
Well, I think that's maybe a good distinction you made to really look at it from a holistic view. Like I know you look at clients, their insurance holistically. We look at people's wealth holistically, is taking a look at their health, right, in a holistic fashion. If maybe both sides of your family, and love to get your take on this, both sides of your family might have some chronic illness or disease that is going to be maybe a challenge that you might expect to face in your future, that could weigh your decision on choosing Advantage versus supplement. If you know, hey, my dad had to fly to MD Anderson and get treatments or whatever it is, right? I'm sure that all weighs on people's mind of which one is right for me given my family health history.
Mayo Clinic, I have several clients that says, I go to Mayo Clinic. They are the best, and there's Cleveland Clinic. And there's some Advantage plans that literally have doctors in network at Mayo Clinic, and they even one company had a Mayo Clinic plan. You could just go to Mayo Clinic. So there's ways to still do that, but not always. They can change that. They could drop them and
subject to change, right?
Subject to change. So if you want to be the most feeling comfortable that none of those situations are going to crop up, don't save the money. Get the Medicare supplement and the drug plan, and a lot of advisors will advise that. You got enough money. Don't worry about that few little incidentals that you could pay on your own.
So as far as timing and penalties, you hit on some. Are there any other kind of gotcha moments when people are enrolling in maybe Social Security and they're thinking about Medicare? Is there anything that they need to be mindful of outside of what you've already shared with us from some of the time frames or some of the penalties? Are there any other of those gotcha moments?
When you hit 65, you qualify to apply for Part B, and your A is automatic. You can get that. So you'll have A and B at 65. But what if you're working and you have group health insurance?
And you want to stay on that insurance plan, right?
If you stay on the group insurance and you go all the way up well past 65, you do not have to apply for B. You should not take B. Why take that $185 out of your money you have to pay or later on your Social Security? So as long as you have what's called like-kind credible coverage, you do not have to apply for B. When you get ready to quit or they take that health benefit away, you have actually a pretty big window. It's 8 months that you can make sure that you get the Part B before you're penalized. And you should start, if you know when you're going to run out of your group, I say 1, 2, 3 months ahead. You can apply up to 3 months ahead of that time and get that.
Now let's talk about one more topic as far as prescription drugs, right? Everybody seems to be, when you get older, a lot of times you might have to get some type of prescription to help out. You had alluded to the Advantage plan as kind of an all-encompassing plan that includes that, but the supplemental, just to clarify for our listeners, that is a separate plan that they would need to purchase. But when they purchase that plan, is there any differences between what those drug plans cover, or are they pretty identical?
Pretty identical is probably a general term, but different companies have different formularies, different drugs in them. As a client applies, we're supposed to take every drug and run them through, and then it gives us an idea as to what their drug cost will be. Mm-hmm. However, the federal government has now the worst. You could take all the drugs you want. As long as they're covered inside the plan, you're capped at $2,000. That's it, $2,100 I think this year. So almost any plan, you're capped at $2,100 if
for the year?
Per the whole year.
Wow.
So you're going to get your drugs pretty well covered as long as they're in there. Mm-hmm. Now, all these drug plan companies, whether you go supplement or Advantage, and I don't want to get down the weeds too much, but you can buy Medicare Advantage plans without drugs. Most of them want them in there, but there's only a couple plans you can buy that will allow you to buy the drug plan separately. Hardly anybody does that. So for general purposes, you either buy it with or without, and most companies want it with. They just soon do it all. Just do it all. And as long as they're in the formulary, they will maximum out at $2,000. Now, different companies have different formularies, and they're required to give you some drug of the drug you required, but it could be a little different drug. And now you can get a little problem there because they want to give you the generic or they want to give you the cheaper drug. So it doesn't hurt to run your drugs, whether you get the supplement or the Advantage, for your drug plan. These Advantage plan companies, I could mention names, but I'm trying to just stay away from different companies, but they literally have a drug, like a drugstore. They are their own drugstore. They buy the drugs from the drug manufacturers and they deliver the drugs, and they are the drugstore. Do you see any efficiency there? Some of them have their own clinics. So if you go there, they treat you right there. And so they're getting to be more than just to pay the bills. They are the provider of the service. And they trying to get the efficiency tighter and better for the benefit of the client, but also their business.
Sure.
So
this has been extremely insightful, and we appreciate that. Is there maybe anything, as someone is approaching that Medicare age and they feel overwhelmed, what steps do you tell people who are about to approach that, as far as people they can call, resources they can utilize to really kind of go and explore more about this important topic?
Well, first of all, get on Medicare. You can't really go shopping, and people will call me and they'll want to set an appointment and come in and see me. And I say, well, where are you at? What do you got? And that little Social Security card, or not Social Security, your Medicare card. I was going to bring mine in, but just a thing there. When you get a Medicare Advantage, you can put that on the shelf. You don't ever have to show your Medicare card again. That you have a health plan. That's it. But when you have, well, let's just walk that through just a second. It just kind of struck me there. When you have Medicare, you have a Medicare card, Part A and B. Then you have a drug plan, Part D. And then you go file a claim. You get sick or injured, and you go to the hospital, and you give them your Medicare card. You give them your Medicare supplement card, and then they give you a prescription, and you go to the drugstore with another card. So you got 3 cards in your wallet. Now, we know that's more efficient, right? You've got 3 different entities, and Medicare doesn't actually pay the bill. They have an entity that's an entity that pays. They're not an expert in paying claims. They hire another. So you got, how many entities did I just describe?
Several.
So when you get the Advantage plan, and it sounds like I'm leaning that way, not necessarily at all, but they put it all. They've got the whole package. And when I said they even have the drug company or the drug pharmacy, and they provide it, and they give them calls, and they say, we'll send it to you, and you don't have to go to that. It's very efficient. So they are making money. They want to make money. That's any business. But they still have to take care of the client. And they're under pressure all the time. They have to meet all the standards of Medicare. I have to meet all the standards of Medicare. And every company, I have to take a test every single year. And I'll just say this, a lot of the calls that you get, don't take them. Don't ever take them. Don't ever buy over the phone. A lot of them, it's out of the country. Go to somebody you trust. That's how you said. Where do you find it? And sit down and say, and maybe ask your friends or somebody you trust, who do you get it with? And that's, again, where I came in as the local agent. This isn't even a big part of my agency. It's a small part. But I've taken care of these folks a lot of times for their home, auto, their businesses, and life insurance. I'm a big advocate of properly financial planning for all of those things. But when they hit the Medicare, I say, go down the street. I don't know you. I can't do that. I just can't do it. It's not a nuisance. In fact, I kind of like it. It's helpful. They like it. They refer their friends and their family, and it feels good to.
Well, you're trying to be holistic in your service,
exactly,
right? And everybody, like we kind of opened up the podcast with, regardless if it's important to you now, this topic will be important to you at some point in time,
yes,
right? And being able to take care of people and service people. So really, if you know that local agent or you know somebody who's well versed in this, being able to sit down with them, kind of go through what they have, what maybe their pain points are, what they enjoy about the different parts of their policy, but then understanding, like we talked about a few moments ago, look at your family health history and your holistic health and see what maybe makes the most sense for me today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just my fear is having a customer come in and say they're upset. It didn't pay for their medical. That's harsh.
Oh yeah.
And that's really how I gravitate to the companies that I represent and the products that I represent, because my customers will tell me what they like or don't like. And I actually try to be a people pleaser. I want them to be happy with it. What other motive would I have?
That's right.
I want them to be.
Any business owner, what do we want to do? Service our clients to the highest level.
Exactly.
With the best products.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Allen, we appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your insight and wisdom. And we'll put a link in this episode if anybody has questions about their Medicare plans, or they're about to go on Medicare and they have questions, that reach out to you and can give you a call. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in with us, and we're looking forward to see you on the next episode.
All opinions expressed on the podcast by the host and guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Olympus Wealth Strategies or Uptick Partners, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice, and should not be relied upon as a basis for any decisions. The investments discussed on this podcast may not be suitable for all investors and involve risks that should be carefully considered. Listeners are encouraged to consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Certain investments may require specific investor qualifications, which not all individuals may meet. Any funds or companies discussed are not a recommendation or endorsement. Guests in the podcast might be actual clients, but are not compensated to be on the show, and their experiences are not representative of all relationships, which might differ substantially.